Okay, so yesterday, or what was it when I saw you guys? Tuesday, we had this retell chart, okay? So just as a refresher for those of you who were not here and did the retell chart, so we read two versions of the same story. We read Rapunzel, the original version, and then we read the version by whose point of view? Who remembers whose point of view? Gothel's point of view, right? So I know this is hard for you guys to see, but it's as big as I could get it. The left-hand side, the blue side, was what? The original, right? And then the right-hand side was Gothel's. And then after we did that, what did we do? Those of you who are here, what did we do after we wrote down both retells of what happened in the story? We filled out that chart. What did we do?
We compared the things from each story.
Yeah, so we looked at both stories and we compared them. And what did we do while comparing them?
We circled things that are the same.
Yeah, we circled things that were the same, the exact same, right? I used with the other word, or the other class, I'm sorry, the word congruent. Do you guys know what congruent means? Anybody? So in math, congruent figures are figures that are the exact same. So if it's a congruent shape, two shapes that are exactly the same, which means if I overlap them, you can't tell that there's a difference because there's not. They're exactly the same. Where if shapes are similar, it would be the exact same shape, only it would change in size, okay? So we were looking for things that were congruent to each other. So this is one that I did with either my homeroom or Mr. Jones's, one of Mr. Jones's class. So this is gonna look a little bit different than probably your version, but it's basically the same. And the process that we're gonna do is the same. So we decided that the congruent things, characters were easy, right? It's obvious that the man and the man, the woman and the woman, Rapunzel and Rapunzel, those are the exact same that were in both. The setting, we have Gothel's garden in both. We have the tower in both. Those are the same, those were easy. When we got to events, that was a little bit more difficult, wasn't it? Because some of the events were similar, but not exactly the same. So we circled what was exactly the same. In both stories, she caught him stealing. In both stories, Gothel raised Rapunzel, right? In both stories, Rapunzel was locked in a tower. How that happened is what changed and what was different. You guys remember all of that? So if you weren't here, that's a refresher of what you missed. So I will try to make a copy of this and post it for you to look at, but also you can copy a friend or ask a friend if they can take a picture and send it to you that was here as well, so you can have a copy of it for the next part, okay? So if you were not here, I'll try to post a copy in Canvas for you, along with this video. So the next part is the part that probably most of you are not looking forward to really, and it's the writing part. But this is the important part, because you have to be able to compare two texts and talk about how the author's perspective changes something. The story changes due to who is telling the story, correct? All right, so when you write, why would I do this? Why would I write all this out just to write an essay? What would be the point of doing that? Does anybody know? Anybody want to take a guess? To plan, right? To plan things out. How many, right? You need to plan things out. Remember when we did this, the retell, and we wrote a summary from the retell? Do you remember that? And how easy it was to write your summary when you did this retell chart? You just said the characters of the story were, the setting took place here, this is what happened, and it was really easy to write that summary. So this is gonna give you all the information that goes into your essay. When you write an essay for comparing two things, you are going to write a paragraph as an introduction, because you guys are sixth graders, so how many paragraphs should you have? At least 5, right? So your first paragraph is an intro, an introduction. We'll talk about hooks and all of that stuff as we progress, okay? But you're gonna write an introduction. So here is, what is the story? Who is the author? What else might you put? This is just fast in the introduction. What else might you put? Anybody have any ideas?
Who the story about?
Okay, so you can do a little bit of what both stories have in common, right? It's a fairy tale that is about a girl who gets locked away in a tower. Both stories are about that, right? So a general idea of what the paper is about. Does anybody know what a thesis statement is?
Pretty sure it's like an idea or something.
So this word right here, you need to write it down. You need to write the word thesis down. I'm going to use it 100 times. A thesis statement is one sentence that tells the reader, me in this case, what your entire paper is about. You will have to have a thesis statement from right now, October 29th, until you are completely done with school, whether that is high school or college. You will have to have a thesis statement. When you go to college, you actually have to write a thesis paper, which is like multi-page research paper, all based around one statement, one thesis, one thought, one idea. All right, a thesis statement, and say it again, a thesis statement is what your entire paper is going to be about. So in your introduction, you're gonna have what is the story, who's the author, what's the paper about, the last sentence of your introduction. The last sentence of your introduction is your thesis. So your thesis is going to be, your thesis is not always the last sentence, but that's what we're gonna do for our purposes. Your thesis is the last sentence telling the reader what the entire paper is about. So in this case, my thesis statement would be, what's my paper about, right? So my paper is about how there's two different versions written about Rapunzel, and the point of view changes kind of what happens, right? So my thesis statement would be, depending on the author, a story can change. Because I have the story of Rapunzel, right? It's a story, the story of Rapunzel. But depending on who the author is, so if it's the original just author, or if it's Dane Gothel who's saying it, really I should probably put point of view. Depending on the point of view, we're gonna say point of view, I'm sorry. Depending on the point of view, a story can change. So you should have that written down. So in your writer's notebook or on this chart, if you want, on the back, you should have that written down. Depending on the point of view, a story can change. That is your thesis for this entire paper. So when I tell you, okay, you're gonna write me an essay, nobody should be saying, but I don't know what to write about. I'm giving you the thesis. I'm giving you, everybody's paper should have what as the very last sentence of the first paragraph?
A thesis.
This thesis statement, I'm giving it to you. You don't have to create your own thesis statement, because everybody's paper is gonna be about the same thing. Does that make sense? So right now, usually they give you a writing prompt, right? They'll tell you what to write about. So I'm giving you the thesis statement, which is what you're going to write about. Questions so far? No? Okay, perfect. So now what do? That's one paragraph. My intro is one paragraph. My conclusion is another paragraph, so how many supporting paragraphs do I need? 3, right? I have my intro and my conclusion, so I only need 3 supporting paragraphs. So paragraph 2, what is my introduction? Paragraph 2 is going to be about something that is the same and has the same meaning. So paragraph 2 is how the 2 stories are the same. How are the 2 stories the same? So somebody give me what is one thing that both stories have in common? If I look at my events that are circled, what is something that both things have in common?
They catch the man.
She catches the man stealing, right? So two stories that are the same, or something that the 2 stories are the same is the man steals from Gothel's garden, right? So my paragraph is going to have my topic sentence. In both stories, a man steals from Gothel's garden. That's the same in both stories. Now you're going to tell me how the point of view changes what happens. So how does the point of view change what happens? The man steals from Gothel's garden, right? What happens when he steals from Gothel's garden in the original version? If we go back and look, Gothel deals with the man by saying, your child for the Rappian, right? So whose idea is it to exchange the child in the original version? Gothel's, okay? So original version, it's Gothel's idea. So Gothel wants the child, right? Wants child. In the new version, from Gothel's point of view, whose idea is it to trade the child?
The man.
The man's idea, right? So in the new version, man's idea to trade child. So my paragraph is going to be about how the 2 stories are the same. The man steals from the garden. That's the same. But depending on who's telling the story, it changes whose idea it actually is to trade the child for either the radishes or the rampion, right? So that's what you're going to write about. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to write in the paragraph. That comes from you. But I am telling you what the paragraph would be about, what to include. Does that make sense? Is this helpful for you, hopefully, to know what to write about in your paragraphs? So then I need another supporting paragraph. So how else are the 2 stories the same? What else do I have circled? So catches the man and catches the man. I know it's kind of hard for you to see, but that's what we did. How else? I have lots of things circled. How else are the 2 stories the same? What's another way that the 2 stories are the same? What's the main problem with the story? Rapunzel gets what?
Rapunzel's locked in the tower.
Yeah, Rapunzel is locked in a tower. Like, that's kind of a main thing, right? So Rapunzel is locked in a tower. Rapunzel is locked in a tower. So again, What does the original version? Why is she locked in the tower in the original version? Because she's what? Anybody remember? Is it because she's beautiful?
Yeah.
She's locked away in the original version because she's beautiful. She wants to protect her from the world. I spelled beautiful wrong. Beautiful. Right? In the original version, she's locked away because she's beautiful. She wants to protect her from the world. In the new version, she's locked away because they want what?
Her hair.
Yeah, it's in our problem, right? They want her hair. New version, because they want to steal her, right? They want her hair. So again, depending on who's telling the story, Dame Gothel is defending her actions, right? She's defending, she has a good reason. What else is she supposed to do but lock her away? Duh, she doesn't want her daughter to get kidnapped. Where in the original version, there's really not a good reason. She's beautiful and she says she wants to protect her, so she just locks her away, but doesn't really give us a lot of information about it. So my whole paragraph is going to be about how the version changes kind of your perspective, right? Are you guys with me so far? Are you understanding how you compare the point of views? This is kind of hard, isn't it? This is a different way of writing. A lot of you haven't really done this. You've done compare and contrast before. The story says this, and this story says this. It's the same. The story says this, and the story says this, and it's different. That's compare and contrast. This is a little more in depth, isn't it? All right, and I know I'm not expecting you to be a perfect on this, and I'll go over the expectations for you, but I am expecting you to at least make a really good attempt. I'm giving you what the paragraphs would need to include, so hopefully that will be helpful. The fourth paragraph, I am going to make you do on your own. So I gave you this paragraph. The two stories are the same by the man stealing from Gothel's garden. This paragraph, they're the same by her being locked in the tower. In this paragraph, how are they the same? So you can use anything else. You can use how Gothel gets mad and cuts off her hair, because that changes on why. You can use how the prince is tricked in both of them. You can use that they live happily ever after in both of them. You can use how Rapunzel gets out of the tower in both of them. All of those things are the same, but the author's perspective changes it, right? So those are all examples. Anything here that is circled, you can use, but I'm not going to give you the topic. So that's where you have to come up with that topic sentence of this paragraph. Okay, I've given you what needs to be in your introduction. I've given you what needs to be in the second paragraph, the first supporting paragraph. I've given you what needs to be in this paragraph. And you have to form the paragraph, but I've given you the idea. Now you need to come up with the idea your own to apply what we did here. Okay? So far, so good? Okay, what is our last paragraph? What is the fifth paragraph? We have an introduction, 3 supporting, and a conclusion. Thank you. So I'm going to write conclusion over here because I'm running out of room. Over there, is that fine? Okay. So my last one is a conclusion. This is something that a lot of you forget when you are writing. A lot of you forget to write a conclusion. You just end your paper. I'm reading along and I'm enjoying your paper. Well, some of you, I'm enjoying your paper. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Gosh, you guys are dead today. Like, awake, right? You should be excited today. You have a weekend coming up. You had like a whole fall break. Okay, so I am going along, right? And I'm reading your guys' paper, and then all of a sudden, nothing. Your paper just ends. Have you ever watched a movie, and then all of a sudden it ends, and you're like, what just happened? Anybody ever do that? Anybody watch a movie and you're like, how in the world did that, I don't understand. How is that the ending? I don't understand the ending. That's what you guys kind of do sometimes. you have to have a conclusion. That's super important. A conclusion is a wrap-up. A conclusion is a wrap-up of what your entire paper is about. You're going to restate the thesis. Oftentimes, you're going to change the way you restate it, but if you want to restate it word for word for right now while you're getting used to it, fine. I just hope that you restate the thesis, okay, because that's really important. You wrap up your paper, you restate the thesis. So you're going to say something like, depending on the point of view of a story, depending on the point of view, a story can change. As used above, as an example, in Rapunzel, when the story was told by the narrator, it did not defend Gothel's actions. Whereas when the story was told by Gothel, she was able to defend her actions. And that's it. Right? It's just a wrap up, a brief summary. A brief summary of what your paper was about. What did you write about? Your conclusion does not need to be 6 sentences long. Paragraphs need to be about 6 sentences long, right? Your conclusion does not. Your conclusion can be about 3 to 4 sentences, and that's fine. Your conclusion doesn't have to be super long, you just have to have one. Okay? Any questions about how you're going to format your paper or what you're going to write about? Any questions about this so far? Are we okay so far? Okay, I'll let you take a picture of all this here if you want, so that you have it. The people who, I'm also, since I'm recording this lesson for the people that are e-learning, I'll upload it to your guys' Canvas as well, so you can go back and watch it if you want, if that's helpful. But you can take a picture of this. I'm going to tell you a few other things that I'm going to be looking for when I grade your paper. How many of you guys turn something in and you get it back and you get a bad score and you don't understand why because you were like, I didn't even know my teacher wanted that? Does that ever happen to you? Right? And that's really frustrating sometimes, isn't it? Okay, so I was going to give you guys a rubric, but to be honest, I forgot to print it off. So I'm just going to write it out for you guys of what I'm going to be looking for. Okay? So I'm going to be looking for, I'm just going to write it here, 5 paragraphs. I'm going to be looking for 5 paragraphs. If you do not have 5 paragraphs, you are going to lose points. I am going to be looking for each paragraph to be 5 to 6 sentences. Right? Most paragraphs you have an introduction sentence, your main idea, your topic sentence, that should be very familiar to you, and then 3 to 4 supporting sentences, and then maybe a transition sentence. That's how a typical paragraph is written. I am going to be looking for capitalization and punctuation. A lot of you, when you start typing, you do not capitalize and punctuate properly. You guys are in 6th grade, you know better, okay? So I'm going to be looking for that capitalization and that punctuation. So I'm looking for all 5 paragraphs, capitalization and punctuation. That stuff is pretty basic. I am going to be looking that you've used details from the text. I know you don't have the actual text in front of you to copy, which is why this is so important, because here are your details to use, okay? This is all I'm looking for. And then did you follow the format or the outline? Okay, so it's pretty basic right now. I know your essays are not going to be perfect. I get that. But these are things that you guys know and are pretty easy. your details from the text we did together and I helped provide for you, right, yesterday, or whenever I saw you. And then did you follow the outline? I gave you what each paragraph should be about. So did you just follow the outline? If you do those things, you'll get a decent grade. And I might take off here or there if your sentences don't make sense or things like that. But if you follow this outline and you make an attempt, then you probably should get a very decent grade on it, okay? This is due, what's today, Thursday? So it'll be due Monday or Tuesday whenever I see you. So for tomorrow's e-learning, for Friday for reading, it's to work on this. This is just gonna be your reading e-learning. You're still gonna have language arts e-learning, but your reading e-learning will be to work on this. So you'll have class period time today to work on it, and then you'll have tomorrow's e-learning time to work on it. So that should be plenty of time to work on it. Okay, any questions? I wanna make sure this is clear, or as clear as possible. I know for some of you it's not gonna be very clear, but at least you have an idea. Okay, I have a question for you. Is having this telling you what each paragraph should be about helpful, or is it confusing? Thumbs up if you find it helpful, thumbs down if you would just rather write whatever with no guidance. Okay, I want to make sure that it makes somewhat sense to you. Okay, all right, so you can begin typing if I were you, I'd type it in a Google Doc, because if you start typing it in Canvas in a text box, you'll erase your work and you don't want to do that. So I do it in a Google Doc, and I would just title the Google Doc Rapunzel or Rapunzel essay, so that when you go to upload it, you know exactly what you're uploading. And then you have this time to work. I will get this video on Canvas as well as where to upload the assignment while you guys are finishing this up, okay?